My sister banned me from her wedding. 2 years later, her husband was calling me mom in the boardroom. Stick with me while I share my story. And if it touches you, don't forget to support our channel by hitting that subscribe button, dropping a like, and sharing it with the people you care about. I'm Claire Monroe. I'm 28. I live in Denver, and I built my life brick by brick after watching the people closest to me tear it down like it meant nothing. It started with my sister, Rachel. She's younger than me by 3 years, always the favorite, always the one with the spotlight. Where I was the quiet achiever, Rachel was the bubbly charmer who never faced real consequences. And yet somehow, I was the one who ended up cast out. The man she married, Ethan Walsh, my college ex. The man who used to gaslight me into thinking I was too intense, too focused, or too sensitive, especially when he started texting my sister at odd hours and blaming me for being paranoid. When I finally confronted him, he claimed I was imagining things, but I wasn't. They didn't even try to hide it for long. A year after we broke up, they were suddenly serious, and Rachel swore it just happened. She wanted me to be happy for her. I tried. I really did. I smiled through gritted teeth at family dinners. I answered her late-night calls when she gushed about her engagement. But inside, something broke. And when I finally told her the truth, that Ethan had emotionally cheated on me, that I wasn't okay with the lies, she froze. A week before the wedding, I got a text. Claire, it's best if you don't come. You make things weird. Weird. I was the one they betrayed. But sure, I was the problem. So, on the day my entire family posed in pastels under fairy lights, I sat on my couch in a navy blue formal dress, a carton of lo mein in my lap, watching reruns of Parks and Rec and trying not to cry. I kept waiting for someone, anyone to say, this isn't right, but no one did. That was the day I stopped waiting to be invited in and started building something of my own. After the wedding, everything got worse. No one in the family reached out to ask how I was doing. Not my parents, not my cousins, not even Aunt Marie, who used to call me her second daughter. Instead, they all circled around Rachel like she was the victim. I heard through the grapevine that they said I was trying to make everything about myself, that I was jealous, that I needed to move on. It broke my heart. I wasn't jealous. I was hurt. Ethan had lied to me, and Rachel had chosen to marry him anyway. And now, my family was acting like I was some bitter drama queen who couldn't handle being left out of the spotlight. For weeks, I barely got out of bed. I didn't eat much. I cried silently into my pillow because there was no one left to talk to. I didn't have a big group of friends. I'd always been the career-focused one. So, when I got knocked down emotionally, there wasn't much of a support system to catch me. But I had one thing left: work. I threw myself into my job at the consulting firm like my life depended on it. In a way it did. The hours were long, but they kept my mind busy. I worked weekends, took on extra clients, and started thinking more seriously about what I wanted for myself. Not just in a job, but in a future. That's when Leah called. We were MBA classmates back in grad school and had once dreamed about starting our own company. You still thinking about that consulting firm idea? She asked one day. Every single day, I replied. 6 months later, we launched Veritas Strategies, a boutique financial consulting company. At first, it was just the two of us in a small co-working space downtown with second-hand desks and big dreams. But it grew fast. Clients came through referrals, then through word of mouth, then through LinkedIn. We were honest, sharp, and fast-moving in a world full of bloated firms and tired ideas. I led with grit. I worked late. I double-checked every contract, but I didn't open my heart to anyone, even when clients praised me or when our team toasted another successful quarter. Something inside me stayed locked. I smiled, I laughed, but I didn't feel much. The people who were supposed to love me had thrown me away, and I didn't know how to trust again. Still, I kept moving forward, one step at a time, because if I couldn't rely on love, I could at least rely on myself. It was a regular Tuesday morning when the email came in. A mid-size logistics company, Brookline Freight, was looking to restructure its regional operations. Their profit margins were thinning, and leadership wanted to bring in outside consultants to fix things fast. Veritas was shortlisted. Then we were selected. Claire didn't think much of it. These projects came and went. Another contract, another challenge. She skimmed through the background documents and set the kickoff date for on-site review. On the morning of the visit, Claire and her small team arrived early at Brookline's headquarters. She sat in the conference room with a tablet, scanning the org chart and internal performance reports. Everything looked standard, until her eyes stopped on one name, Ethan Walsh, Director of Supply Chain. She stared at the screen. At first, she thought it had to be someone else, maybe a coincidence. But then she clicked on his profile and saw the photo. Same sharp jawline, same cocky smile, same man who stood beside her sister at the altar 2 years ago. Her stomach dropped. For a brief moment, Claire thought about walking out. She could hand the project off to Leah or another consultant and never step foot in that building again. But something inside her shifted. A calm, cold clarity. Number she wasn't running. Not this time. She closed the report and stood up, smoothing her blazer with steady hands. "Let's do this," she said to her team. The irony was almost too perfect. Ethan had no idea that Veritas Strategies was her company. She had kept her profile low, letting Leah handle public speaking and media. Most clients never met the founders directly unless they were big fish. Ethan wouldn't have a clue, at least, not yet. Claire walked into the orientation room where Brookline's senior staff waited. Ethan sat at the end of the table, chatting with another manager, completely unaware. He looked up briefly when she entered, gave a polite nod, then turned back to his screen. Claire took her seat across the table, hiding a small, knowing smile. She wasn't just back in the room, she was running it, and for now she'd let him stay clueless. She wanted to see exactly how far this would go. Claire returned to Brookline Freight the following week, this time for a quarterly board meeting. She wasn't required to attend. Veritas usually let department heads present their findings first, but something told her to sit in on this one, quietly, observing. She took a seat at the far end of the room, blending in as just another consultant. No one introduced her. Ethan didn't look twice. He stood at the front of the room, presenting supply chain updates with a rehearsed smile and too many slides. Claire watched closely, noting every outdated buzzword, every overpromised metric. His voice had the same smug edge it always did, like he still thought he was the smartest guy in the room. But Claire could see the cracks. He spoke about a vendor partnership that had already failed. He glossed over delivery delays that had been flagged in the company's internal system. His numbers looked impressive, until you remembered that they were projections from last quarter, not current one. The board members nodded, clearly unaware of the real issues behind the glossy presentation. After the meeting, Claire met privately with Brookline's COO. She didn't mention Ethan by name. Instead, she pointed to inefficiencies in the supply chain, bloated costs in warehousing, and supplier contracts that hadn't been reviewed in years. Her suggestions were firm but polite. A reallocation of budget here, a temporary freeze on vendor approvals there, and, crucially, a recommendation that the restructuring plan include closer oversight of the supply chain department. Within days, small changes started rolling out, quiet but powerful. Ethan's team was asked to resubmit logistics reports using a new format, one Claire designed to highlight errors. Certain budget requests were rerouted through Veritas for review. Memos about delivery policy updates didn't make it to Ethan's inbox, but Claire saw every single one, and he started to notice. His frustration showed in the way he snapped at junior staff, muttered under his breath during team huddles, and called unnecessary meetings to regain control. But it was slipping from him, and he didn't even know who was pulling the strings. Claire, meanwhile, stayed behind the curtain, calm, focused. But the time for silence was ending. The next company-wide strategy session would be led by Veritas directly. Claire would be standing in front of every department, including supply chain, including Ethan. She was ready, and he had no idea what was coming. Claire sat at her desk late one evening, her office quiet except for the hum of the city outside her window. The glow of the monitor flickered across her face as she scrolled through logistics reports. But her mind wasn't on numbers. It had drifted back to a night that still lived in her bones. 2 years ago, she had come home from work exhausted, craving a hot shower and sleep. Her phone buzzed, a message from a mutual friend. "You should see what Ethan's been posting. Check his tagged photos." She did, and then she saw the texts. Ethan, Rachel, late-night conversations filled with laughter, inside jokes, secrets, screenshots of messages that had been flirty at first, then crossed a line, while he was still with Claire. Her breath caught. She remembered how the phone slipped from her hand, how the world tilted just a little. She showed her parents the next day, hoping for support, for someone to say it wasn't okay. Instead, her mother had sighed and said, "Don't ruin your sister's future over the past." And just like that, the betrayal became her burden to carry. Not Ethan's, not Rachel's. Claire blinked and returned to the present. Her inbox pinged. A new email from the family group thread. Subject, Rachel's baby shower. Details below. She clicked, already knowing what she'd find. Photos of pink balloons, venue booking, themed cupcakes. A note from her cousin. So excited to celebrate Rachel. Let us know if you're bringing gifts early. But nowhere was her name in the invite list. No. Hey Claire, we hope you can come. No mention at all. She wasn't surprised. Not anymore. Still, the ache was there. Not sharp like before, but dull, quiet. A reminder of everything she had lost and everything she had built to survive. She closed the email. Rachel had her perfect picture life. The wedding, the house, the baby, and the family to go with it. But Claire had something else. Power, control, peace. Earned through fire. They could plan their parties. She had a meeting tomorrow, and Ethan would be there, facing her. The department-wide meeting buzzed with casual chatter and the shuffle of papers as employees filed into the large conference room. Claire walked in quietly, dressed in a sharp navy suit, her heels clicking with quiet authority. She took her seat at the head of the table, flipping open a folder with the company logo. She could feel the shift in the room before she saw him. Heads turned, whispers passed between junior staff, and then Ethan walked in. He paused mid-step, his eyes landing on her. For a full 5 seconds, he didn't move. His face went pale, his jaw slightly slack. Claire looked up calmly, meeting his gaze without blinking. "Mr. Walsh," she said, her voice even, "please take your seat. We're about to begin." He blinked rapidly and sat down, clearly rattled. The meeting moved forward, but Ethan wasn't himself. His hands shook slightly as he flipped through his notes. His once confident tone cracked as he tried to present departmental updates. Claire sat still, offering no reaction, no acknowledgement of the history they shared. She waited until the very end, when the room had settled into an uneasy silence. "I have one more item," she said, standing slowly. "After reviewing last quarter's numbers, I've decided we need a comprehensive audit of the supply chain department. Effective immediately." She paused and looked directly at Ethan. "I'll be overseeing it personally." Gasps filled the room. Ethan's face flushed red. He opened his mouth to speak, but Claire had already gathered her papers and was walking out. Her phone rang that night. Rachel. Claire let it ring twice before answering. "What the hell are you doing?" Rachel snapped. "Are you serious right now?" Claire leaned back on her couch, sipping from a cup of tea. "Hi, Rachel. Nice to hear from you too. Why are you coming after Ethan like this?" "You're doing this on purpose." Claire's voice was cool, calm. "I'm doing my job. Unlike you, I earned my place here." "You're unbelievable." "No, Rachel. What's unbelievable is that you thought there wouldn't be consequences forever." Rachel hung up. Claire didn't flinch. She placed her phone face down and turned back to her documents. The past had caught up with them, but Claire wasn't angry anymore. She was focused. The audit was just beginning. It didn't take long for things to spiral. 2 weeks into the audit, Ethan's department began showing cracks, deep ones. Financial records were a mess. Invoices didn't match delivery log. There were complaints from vendors about delayed payments and broken promises. Claire had her team triple-check everything before reporting it to the board. It wasn't just sloppy, it was reckless. Employees from Ethan's team quietly began reaching out to HR, sharing concerns about his temper, late-night demands, and general disorganization. One even mentioned he hadn't updated a single contract in over a year. Claire watched the fallout unfold with a cold, focused eye. When HR asked if Ethan should be given a chance to explain, Claire gave a simple answer: begin restructuring talks. There was no need for drama. The numbers spoke for themselves. His leadership had failed, but drama came anyway, loud, furious, and emotional, in the form of Rachel. She barged into Claire's office one morning without knocking, her eyes red and voice cracking. "Claire, what are you doing? You're ruining everything," she cried, arms flailing. Claire barely looked up from her screen. "Rachel, I'm in the middle of something." Rachel stepped closer, tears spilling. "They're talking about suspending Ethan. Do you even care what this is doing to us?" Claire finally looked at her, her expression unreadable. "You threw me away for a man who couldn't manage a spreadsheet," she said flatly. Rachel blinked, stunned silent. Claire continued, her voice even. "You chose him. You believed every lie he told you. And now, when it's not just my heart he's mishandled, but an entire division, suddenly, I'm the villain." Rachel's voice dropped to a whisper. "You're my sister." Claire stood slowly, her tone quiet but sharp. "I was your sister when you let him cheat on me. I was your sister when you told me not to come to your wedding. You made your choice. Rachel stood there, frozen. Claire walked over and opened the door. You should leave now. Rachel didn't argue. She just wiped her face and walked out, shoulders shaking. Claire closed the door, took a deep breath, and sat back down. It didn't feel good, but it felt right. The conference room was quiet, except for the soft hum of the overhead lights. Claire sat at the head of the table, flanked by the company's HR director and 2 board members. A thick folder rested in front of her, filled with every piece of evidence her team had collected over the last month. Then the door opened. Ethan walked in, looking nothing like the confident man who once strutted across her college campus. His tie was crooked, eyes sunken, and he seemed unsure of whether to make eye contact. When he saw Claire seated at the table, his face paled. He swallowed hard, offered a weak smile. Claire, I didn't know you'd be here. Claire didn't smile back. Sit down, Mr. Walsh. The use of his last name made him blink, but he obeyed. He sat across from her, clasping his hands tightly, like he was trying to hold himself together. HR began with formalities, outlining the purpose of the meeting and the severity of the concerns raised. Then they turned it over to Claire. She didn't waste time. Over the past quarter, she began, flipping open the folder. Your department has failed to reconcile over $220,000 in vendor payments. Several contracts expired without renewal, which cost the company 2 key partnerships, and morale in your team is at an all-time low, according to anonymous feedback. Ethan opened his mouth, but Claire raised a hand. There's more, she said, her voice calm but direct. Employee retention has dropped by 18% in the last 6 months. Multiple vendors have flagged late responses and non-compliance issues under your supervision. You've not only failed to lead, but actively placed the company at financial and legal risk. Ethan finally spoke, voice shaky. Claire, I know things haven't been perfect, and I know we have history, but I never wanted to hurt you. Back then, This isn't about back then, Claire interrupted, closing the folder. This is about your performance here, at this company. He leaned forward slightly, pleading. Please, Claire, don't do this. I messed up, I get it. But please, can't we just talk? She met his eyes. For a moment, silence settled between them like heavy fog. Then she said, clearly and without emotion, this isn't personal, but it is satisfying. HR nodded, signaling the meeting was over. Ethan sat back, stunned. Claire stood, collected the folder, and walked out without looking back. Word spread fast, as it always did in their family. Within days of Ethan's dismissal, whispers turned to full-blown stories. Rachel, once the golden child with the perfect marriage, was now the sister married to the man who got publicly fired, and by Claire no less. Rachel's humiliation was total. She stopped posting online. Friends who once fawned over her wedding photos disappeared. At first, Claire ignored the noise, but then her phone rang. It was their mother. I just need you to fix this, her mother said, not even bothering with a hello. You've made things worse than they had to be. Rachel is devastated. Claire listened quietly, her voice steady when she finally replied. I'm not cleaning up anyone else's mess ever again. There was a long pause, then a sigh. Claire, family should come first. Claire didn't argue. She simply said, you made your choice a long time ago. Now I'm making mine. After that, the silence from her mother was sharp, but it didn't cut Claire the way it once might have. She'd already mourned the version of her family she thought she had, the one where she and Rachel were sisters, where loyalty wasn't conditional, and love didn't require being the one who stayed quiet to keep the peace. Some family members, however, reached out quietly. An older cousin messaged her saying, you did what none of us ever could. Her father's sister called, telling Claire how proud she was. A few sent emails simply offering support, small olive branches that made Claire feel a little less alone. Still, it was bittersweet. At night, she would sometimes scroll through old family photos, birthday parties, holidays, the goofy childhood snapshots where she and Rachel used to be inseparable. The ache of what was lost hadn't disappeared, but something had changed. She no longer blamed herself. She no longer wondered what she could have done differently to be loved the same. Now, when she looked at those photos, she saw not just what had broken, but how far she'd come since. She wasn't the one who abandoned her family. She was the one who survived it. New York was different this time, not rushed, not chaotic, just full of life, full of possibility. And for the first time in years, Claire Monroe felt like she could breathe. Veritas Strategies had just landed its biggest contract yet, a multi-million-dollar partnership with a Fortune 500 company to lead a nationwide restructuring. It was the kind of deal that got headlines and press mentions, the kind of deal people said couldn't be done by a firm so young, so lean. But Claire did it. She stood beneath the tall city buildings, hands tucked in her coat pockets, and smiled to herself as she wandered into Central Park. The air was crisp, the sun warm on her face. Her phone buzzed endlessly with congratulations, from her team, from clients, from even a few of the people who once dismissed her. She silenced it for now. This moment wasn't for them, it was for her. The girl who'd sat in a formal dress, eating takeout on the night her family chose someone else. The woman who'd built a company with no roadmap, no safety net, and no one clapping from the sideline. Claire had carved her peace from brokenness. She no longer lived for approval or chased validation from the people who withheld it. Veritas wasn't just a business, it was a reflection of who she had become. Sharp, intentional, resilient. Her team respected her not because of her last name or who she dated. They followed her because she led with clarity and strength. She mentored younger women at the firm, encouraging them to own their ambition. And when someone doubted her, she didn't shrink. She outperformed. Her heart was still healing in places, but it beat with a rhythm she could finally trust, her own. Claire walked until she reached a quiet bench by the water, sat down, and watched the ducks glide across the pond. She thought about Rachel, about Ethan. She wasn't angry anymore, just detached. She didn't need them to acknowledge her worth. She had already proved it to herself. A mother walked past with her daughter, and Claire caught the little girl's giggle as she chased pigeons. The sound filled her with a surprising softness. Yes, life had been cruel, but it had also brought her here, to this bench, in this city, in this moment of calm after the storm. She leaned back, closed her eyes, and whispered, "They said I didn't belong at the wedding. They were right. I belonged at the head of the table." Do you think Claire made the right choice by staying silent and letting her work speak for itself? Or should she have confronted Ethan and Rachel sooner? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if stories like this inspire you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss one.